How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend to heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, and I will sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, and I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. And they that shall see thee shall narrowly look upon thee, and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth tremble, that did shake the kingdoms? God bless the reading of his word. All right. This is another class of New Year's Cosmology, class number 18, The Fall of Lucifer, Part B, Fall Like Lightning. All right, so today we're going over this scenario, and what's going on here is we have to start with this question, and this is something major, a major key to this whole issue. What started the flood? And when I'm talking about the flood, you know I'm talking about the flood of Noah, the worldwide global flood. If the flood really happened, what started it? Because it seems to have been, definitely providential, definitely prophetic and supernatural in several ways, but the event itself had many lasting effects in nature, and therefore having something to do with nature. And so this is what I've been building up to in this explanation. Well, basically, at this point when I talk about the flood, there are two figures that I really look to strongly in the development of this idea. And that is Drs. Walt Braun and Kent Hovind. Now, in Walt Braun's model, he believes that the start of the flood was lunar gravity. In other words, that there was ancient subterranean waters, and we worked a lot of that out in our last class, the wet earth. But basically, that these waters were churned by the gravitational pull of the moon. Kent Hovind had another idea, and his idea was that there were asteroids that had come and smacked the earth and punctured, probably the biggest one we see is in the Yucatan Peninsula next to Mexico, but that it had punctured the earth, and that's what triggered these subterranean waters. Now, my, let's say, theological preference and speculation would disagree with both of them. Not that I'm absolutely right and they're absolutely wrong or anything like that, but here's what it is. See, Walt Braun argues that the asteroids and the comets in our solar system came from the subterranean waters, and the pressure built up and then exploded. My problem with his theory is that it's as if God had made a time bomb, because he set everything into motion, and it's just a matter of time before it happens. And then you have to wonder about Adam and Eve, and if Adam had not eaten the apple and that kind of stuff. I believe that I just don't see that as God's, preference. But yet at the same time, Dr. Hovind, when he has his asteroids, the question is, and I could be right or wrong, but the question is like, why is it that God is creating things that are chaotic, that don't have a semblance of order? These comets and asteroids are just sitting there. Why? God has made these planets perfectly spherical. So why does he have these unformed asteroids? And I think Walt Braun's explanation is better as far as that goes. One thing is, though, is that I believe in a ice canopy, or at least mostly ice canopy, because the sun's going to be going around it and it's going to be melting things, and then it all kind of gets churned and stuff like that. It goes past and then it freezes right back up again. So there would be like a lot of churning forces and things like that. But basically, the ice canopy would be affected by the lunar gravity, okay? And that would also help with that churning. But essentially, the start is this event that I call the fall of Lucifer, and we started it off earlier. Let me go ahead and show you some things. This is extra biblical, but it is a Jewish tradition before the time of Christ, written down in a book called Enoch. And Enoch was a prophet in the scriptures, and he was the one of the patriarchs who actually got caught up to heaven. Okay, he just got translated right into glory. And basically, we know that Enoch did prophesy things from the book of Jude, but basically, we don't have anything authoritative. But this novel basically could have taken traditions that are true. So let me go ahead and now look here. This is in the this is the pseudepigrapha, which talks about these things. All right, it says I wanted to notice 86:3. All right, it says that once again I saw a vision, and I observed the sky, and behold, saw many stars descending and casting themselves down upon the sky, upon the first star, and they became bovids among the calves. Now, it gets into weird apocalyptic imagery, which, I'll be honest with you, like, it leads to, like, it has these scenes of kind of bestiality, but, like, one star penetrates the smaller star, and so on and so forth, and there's a big catastrophe, basically. Now, I move forward, though, and it says, is the vision of the punishment of the fallen stars in 88. It says, I then saw one of those four who had come out earlier, seizing that first star, binding his hands and feet, and throwing him into an abyss. This abyss was narrow and deep and empty and dark. Okay. Now, we've talked about in that Fall of Lucifer class, we talked about the constellations and how the constellation Draco was of the north, and it used to be in the past that the North Star was part of the constellation Draco. So, therefore, you have this whole thing, the fall of Lucifer, and everything like that going on. And here's an ancient Jewish tradition in agreement with my idea. Okay? Also, then you got this fella from the Viking land, and I'm probably going to slaughter this this name. I don't know how to read all that, Viking stuff. I used to have a foreign exchange sister. I should have asked her, but anyway, I'm just going to go for it, okay? Jormungandr! All right. Here's a picture of Jormungandr, and he's in the middle of fighting Thor. All right, so this is Viking mythology. And basically, Thor is the mythological son of God, okay? And basically, Jormungandr had, basically was a snake who fell from heaven and was thrown down to the abyss. Now, that's very important, okay? Because what we're establishing here is that with mythology, even though it's not necessarily accurate, it can point to true things. And you think about this when we're dealing with, for instance, Aesop's fables. And so you had the Odyssey, but you also had this one. It was the one with the Iliad, okay? The Trojan War, a real great book, about 600 or 700 pages. But basically, you have true facts in fiction, okay? So basically, when you see these mythologies, could it be that ancient people are seeing things? They may not be identifying them properly, but they are seeing things. And a lot of scholars have started to get into this idea. So basically the Vikings, that's important because where are the Vikings? They're up north, and a lot of them are pretty close to the pole star. So that would be, I mean, the polar region. Okay, but that's definitely a good clue. Of all the myths and stuff like that, the people would see an event. That one is going to stick out. Now, so then we look at the several different archetypes. And let's see here. One is the bull horns on a stand. Now, basically what you're seeing here, let me make sure I have that up close so y'all can take a pretty picture. Okay. Basically, you have this explosion and this thing that looks like the sun, and then it shoots down. This is also another mythology. They call it the Kronos wheel. This was a fun book to look at. But basically, the Egyptians, they kind of focus on this. You see that with the symbolism of the staff, and also the symbolism of this thing. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. And then it also mentions over here the symbolism of what? The pole star. Okay, right there. See, make sure you're getting that. Okay, so there we go again. And that looks like that trail down there goes along with my gamma ray burster idea. Let me do a little slideshow. This is a picture of a gamma ray burster. Okay, or at least an illustration. So here I'll give you a couple illustrations. So then, you know, the star has this explosion. Okay. And there's another cool graphic. It's coming down. And here's one of those ancient Native American paintings, and you'll notice, what has it got there? Throwing that shot. Lucifer falling like lightning. So obviously, as we go through that fall, you would see a great explosion. Another illustration. Finally, here it is. Let me make sure this is really good size for everybody. That is the Arctic. And you notice, let me see if I can get my finger right. You notice over here these ridges, okay? This is underneath the ocean. And it looks like it's a little bit caved in. Alright. So how does that work? Well, let's see here. The Earth would have certain attractions, okay? And basically, the Earth has that electromagnetic field. And the Earth is covered by the canopy. And I explained earlier that this canopy would have hydrogen frozen solid and making different bands going along the electromagnetic field. And that would basically kind of make a construction to hold up the canopy, but it has metallic properties is the point. So the whole Earth is now, you know, got this electromagnetic property. And meanwhile, when we go with the geocentric frame, you know, not only is the star aimed pretty close, but basically in that pulsar, when it shoots out, it's gonna, you know, it's gonna gravitate or magnate, but it's gonna be drawn over to the top of the Earth. Okay. Now, when it hits, not only is it north, but it's also going to be hitting the attraction of the Earth's electromagnetic field. And I believe that the Earth really has kind of like a backwards thing where it's pushing up and it's pulling as far as the electromagnetic field. So basically, it's going to be drawn in, and just like a lightning rod, the magnetic North Pole is going to suck in that gamma ray burster. And so the gamma ray burster gets drawn down into the subterranean waters, and it conducts itself through the subterranean waters. And basically, let's see here. What kind of evidence do we have that this happened? Now, I pointed to one, as we saw in that picture, and that was that it looks like it got caved in a little bit. All right. And basically, it comes in, and we know that the Earth has a wide equator. And some have argued with a geocentric point of view, but if this thing hits and the Earth is held up electromagnetically, it's going to squish that ball just a little bit, because we're talking about all that kinetic force. So as it squishes the ball, then the equator gets a little bit wider. Okay? And guess what? The Earth is kind of wide around the belt. Okay, around the equatorial belt, it's a little fat. Okay? But is there any other evidence? Well, over in India, or around India, we find this thing underneath the ocean. This is the East 90 Ridge, this long thing here. I believe it's about 1,500 miles. Okay. And about 2 or 3 miles wide. It's a basalt manifestation there. I think that's India right here. Okay. And so basically, you have this giant thing going up, and it's perfectly north. Okay, and it'll go across the equator line. It'll be like a 90 degree from the equator. Okay. So why do we have that layer there? Now, I'll be honest, I'll have to, I do have to search that thing a little bit more. Okay. Sometimes I'm riding by the seat of my pants, just like anybody who's coming along on this. But basically, that basalt layer, I'm thinking it's probably that the Earth is held up electromagnetically. And we see in the Earth, something we talked about several times, but there's basically this cosmic background microwave radiation layer. Okay, when we talk about the axis of evil and stuff like that. But basically, this layer, cosmic microwave background, that could be a sign that the Earth is being magnetically held up. And it's, the Bible says that the Earth hangeth upon nothing. So basically, when it gets hit with that force, and it gets shoved down, okay, and some scriptures will say the Earth was shooken out of its place. Well, basically, when it gets shoved down, then something is ripping here. Now, as I said, I don't know if that is a rip due to forces inside the Earth or external of the Earth, okay, because we got all this force going on right here through that gamma ray burster. But basically, you see the dip, okay, of the land. Now, I've seen a fellow who is a hydroplate theorist who agrees with Walt Braun, and he said, well, that thing is the Earth shifting over, okay, because they go along with regular heliocentrism. And he said, well, that's the Earth shifting over, so you climb everything up, and there you got the Himalayas. And maybe the Himalayas used to be the original pole star and stuff like that. But, not pole star, anyway, the North Pole used to be somewhere like Mongolia or something. But basically, the problem is, okay, is if the Earth is spinning, then that scar would have went one way or the other, wouldn't it? Okay, it wouldn't have just stopped and just went straight up. All right. And I don't know. I mean, that could be a scratch. Maybe the Earth was there and it scratched its way up. Although it does have a little definitive thing there, but that could have been taken away just by irrigation. So basically, that is a sign of, this calamity. Okay. Now, as it goes through the Earth, all right, it heats all this water, okay? All this gamma radiation hits this water. And the water is probably, full of energy anyway, all that kinetic energy from tons and tons and tons of like granite and all that kind of stuff. So basically it was ready to go off, okay? And so when it does that and it, water conducts all this energy and stuff, I believe that the mystery of the polonium halos is going to be solved, because what's going to happen is that it's going to heat the granite, okay? And as it heats this granite, then you're going to see a lot of fusion take place. So instead of like the uranium half-life theory where, how long does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop? Or how long does it take the uranium to turn into lead? We're not going to be dealing with that. We're going to be dealing with these elements being fused together. Okay, so the elements that were in the earth, okay, and we do see uranium mixed with granite a lot. Basically, these elements are created by fusion. Okay, it's not because they broke down. All right. But these elements become fused together. And, once again, this is going with a preference, but, it's like, why does God make all these radioactive materials? Well, maybe he made the materials and then they became radioactive later. Okay? And so when you have fusion, you have this buildup. And so you build up the element, you add more the protons, neutrons, and all that kind of stuff. But you add on, okay, with that fusion, and then there's all these electrons falling off, okay. So basically, all that radiation, all that parent element goes down. Well, basically, it was building up the parent element, okay. So the parent was actually the kid. It's gonna get kind of weird, but basically, that's kind of my speculation on that issue. So I think we're about to wrap up with today's lesson. I will say this, though, as I'm starting to look at these archetypes and mythological symbols, I'm starting to realize that, I'm excited because this is all starting to slowly explain all the big science questions that have attacked the Bible. Okay, and I see how God is going to be vindicated in this. But at the same time, this one, when we talk about the fall of Lucifer, all these mythological archetypes, you start to see where some of them start to get the wrong idea. And we'll see that a little bit later. And all these pagan foundations and stuff, and the Tower of Babel, and the Mountain of God, it's all going to start coming together to where they're worshiping the god of this world, and the god of this world is Lucifer. And when I say that, I mean God as a title. I don't mean that Lucifer is the one true deity, even though many people would be led astray. Okay, and that goes along with Ken Ham's presentation of the 7 C's, where you have the catastrophe moving on to the confusion, and that is a sad state. But nevertheless, even though God can punish the earth through man's sinfulness and all these spiritual battles and things, even though that is true, that means also that God can redeem, and that we have a redeemer. And so even like with these mythologies of Hercules, the son of God, destroys the serpent, or Thor, the son of God, destroys Jormungandr. The thing is that the true Lord, Jesus Christ, has come and he has destroyed the ways of the devil, and he's giving you eternal life. So that's it for today's lesson, and we will see you soon on New Year's Cosmology class.